Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Lady Chow Feng and Kenny, and we're going to talk about the 1987 film A Chinese Ghost Story by Ching Siu-tung. This is a movie about a scholar who tries to take refuge in a temple and falls in love with a ghost, but finds himself on the wrong side of a tree demon's wrath and has to contend with a really aggressive and powerful Taoist swordsmaster. So that's the sort of the rough, very quick synopsis of it. And like I said, it's directed by Sui-tung. He's directed a lot of really great movies, including the Swordsman films and Duel to the Death, which I highly recommend. And more recently, he did, I think he directed The Sorcerer and the White Snake. So guys, before we get into the, I'm going to go through the movie kind of like we did last time, but I just want to get everybody's sort of general reaction. Like, what did you guys think of the movie in general? We can start with you, Lady Chow Feng.
I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a good movie. I like the love story between the human character and the not human character, and I like the action sequences, and I just thought it was a really good story, kind of different than what I'm used to.
Yeah, and I enjoyed the movie as well. I think it's definitely different from what we usually watch. There's a lot more of a magical aspect to this movie, and it's kind of like going to Shuanghuan or Shansha territory, where you have like the magical magical effects and ghosts and demons and stuff, and the concept of going to hell to retrieve your loved one was a very sort of fresh take on it. And I really enjoyed the sort of bumbling scholarly character that Leslie Cheung portrayed, and I kind of like one thing that sort of amused me was that another movie that we've seen with Leslie Cheung in it was the Bride with White Hair, and that was a movie where one of the main antagonists was someone who spoke with a male and female voice basically at the same time. And in this one as well, it's like, it's like a thing with him. It's like he stars in movies where the bad guy has a weird male-female voice issue going on.
Well, and yeah, this movie, I think, seems to cause a lot of typecasting. Like Leslie Cheung, definitely, you see him in this kind of role, and Joey Wong you see in this kind of role constantly as well. So, it's and I think you're right. There's a definite connection with Bride with White Hair. It has a lot. There's a lot of similarities in terms of mood and in terms of the point you made about the villain and all that stuff. So yeah, I thought it was. I like this movie. I think it's a great film. I love that it sort of blends horror, comedy, action, but none of those three things seem to suffer from the existence of the other. A lot of times, if you try to balance all those three things, one of them is going to have to be diminished. But it feels like with this one, it all is complementary, and we can get into that a little bit more later on. But I guess moving into sort of the discussion of the film itself, and you guys can feel free to pipe in at any point while I'm going over the details. But it opens up with a scene where we have a kind of almost like a random scholar at the Lanro Temple who gets seduced by the Joey Wong character and is and killed by the tree demon. And it's just sort of the opening scene that establishes everything. I don't know if anybody has any comments on how that scene was shot or anything like that, but any thoughts?
Implication.
Huh?
Just the implication of death by draining in a very suggestive position.
Yeah, there were a lot of suggestive pose, and like you didn't actually see anything, but a lot of the glimpses that you got sort of led your imagination to certain places. It was and the way that people are killed in this is I don't know, it's pretty gruesome. The way that they're basically sucked dry by this tree demon, and who we learn more about later. But what's also interesting, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I like that the remnants of these scholars are left over and become monsters unto themselves in the temple. they don't really amount to much in this movie. They're not, they're sort of a lurking threat that never really hurt anybody, but they still have sort of a function. And and before we sort of get into it, I do want to mention this is based on a story by Pu Song Ling. The story is just the name of the Joey Wong character, Ni Xiao Chan, and it's similar to the movie. The movie takes a little bit of some liberties, obviously, and in the book, the outcome is quite a bit different, and we get we can get into that a little bit later in the podcast if people want, but it's definitely worth reading. The Pu Song Ling story is from the collection Strange Tales in a Chinese Studio, and this is a collection of stories that have had a huge impact on horror movies in China, and again, this is, I think, one of the more iconic adaptations of it. So then we get a musical introduction with Ning Choi-san, the Leslie Cheung character, going. What looks like is maybe his first assignment as a tax collector, because he's incredibly poor. His umbrella has holes in it and is not protecting him from the rain. He's got a hole in his shoe. All of the food that he's eating looks terrible, and he ends up taking shelter in the rain as this swordsman wanders by, and these bandits, who robbed him, are fleeing, and the swordsman lops off one of their heads and then kills another one, and the blood splatters on Leslie Cheung, and then he's sort of stuck in this awkward situation with this swordsman who gives him a bun. And I don't know, it's just sort of the musical introduction, but I think it's worth commenting on the scene if you guys have any thoughts.
It is. I actually thought the swordsman Shah character was like pretty decent bloke. I mean, he only killed those two bandits just because they stole from him, which in this sort of day and age, in that sort of day and age, kind of made sense. I mean, yeah. And he shared his food with Ning Choi-san, which he didn't have to do. And it's like, he could see that Leslie Cheung's character was very poorly dressed and he had like holes in his shoes and stuff. So he tossed him a bun, and I for whatever reason, like Ning Choi-san, like I thought it was a bit ungrateful at that point. He he sort of took a small bite out of it until like the swordsman left, and he's like spat it all out and tried to and ran away as soon as he could, which I thought was pretty ungrateful of him. But doesn't really impact the story in any way, to be fair. But I just thought that was an interesting interesting thing to show.
No, I thought it was a nice gesture on the swordsman's part. I thought he was trying to basically do the right thing. He just was very sort of righteous. He doesn't make distinctions. If somebody's done something bad, he punishes them, and if somebody is innocent, he gives them food, I think. And so, and he's not a very gentle sort of person. So, the Ning Choi-san ends up spitting out the bun, and I do wonder if he thought maybe it was poisoned or just dirty or just didn't want it. But I was hungry, so I've always kind of been curious about the spitting out of the bun.
Yeah, I was curious about that too. I kind of wondered if he just was thinking that the swordsman was evil and just didn't want to have anything evil touch him or go in him. I don't know. It was just really weird. Well, and I thought it was kind of ungrateful too, because if I'm hungry, I'm just going to eat whatever someone gives me.
Well, in the short story that it's based on, his character is kind of like that. He's very pure, and he at one point the ghost offers him gold. She offers him seduction first, and he rejects that. And then she offers him gold, and he rejects that. And so I think maybe that's a relic of that part of the character from the story. But I don't know. I guess he could also think maybe the swordsman's just trying to poison me. Maybe he just saw the guy cut somebody down, and he seemed pretty troubled by what he saw. So I don't know. Kenny, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's hard to say because I don't know, tax collectors in general or whatever, they're not really seen as good people, aren't they? So it's kind of strange that he seems like so innocent and righteous that he can't even accept food from someone who's starving one is willing to go and collect all of the money from all these like people doing their businesses properly. And I don't know, it seems that scene just seems a bit unnecessary to me, and it leads us to a bit of I guess contradiction in his character, in the sense that he seems like someone who would appreciate help from people, and maybe he would see the good in people. Whereas here, he was just obviously completely dismissive of Swordsman Shah as a person, and it's like, oh, he is completely evil, and I must have nothing to do with him. I can't even have his food touch my lips, and it just seems a bit too extreme.
Well, and again, it could be that we're misreading it, and that he was just scared, and and that's why he didn't want to. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess. But he is still, even though he's a tax collector, they're scholar officials, and so he at this point, maybe he still is holding on to some idea that he's this upright, right. There's even later in the story, in the movie, there's a point where he kind of rebukes both the swordsmen, but again, he does it in a much more I think endearing way, But I don't know. I always found that scene a little bit odd. Like I don't quite know what to make of it, and I don't know if I'm missing something, or if there if I'm reading too much into it. Maybe maybe it's just a funny moment that I'm not supposed to think too much about. But I don't know. Anyways, the story continues, and he goes to town, and I don't know. It's an odd community. There are soldiers, and these guys were. They keep sort of recurring throughout the movie. They just are aggressively trying to arrest people, and if they hear people shouting, they come after them. They just like the slightest provocation, they just rush out to arrest people, and they don't really care who they arrest. And we kind of learn a little more about that later when we actually meet the magistrate who's handling all of the cases. It's a little clear why that's the case, but so he sort of has this run-in, with these soldiers, and then he goes to collect taxes from one of the restaurants, and his books have been completely ruined by the rain. The ink is run, and he has no records of how much he needs to collect, and so he's not able to get any money, and he's not able, therefore, to stay at an inn, and he has to go find cheap accommodations, and he asks around, and somebody tells him to go to Lanro Temple, and everybody is very quiet all of a sudden, and he doesn't seem to take any notice, and he goes to Lanro Temple, and on the way he's terrified by some wolves, but he does he does make it there safely, and did you guys have anything you wanted to say about the inn scene or any of that, or can I?
Well, isn't that where I thought it was funny that when they were telling him about the temple, the people started talking about him as he was turning away to leave, and then he turned around to look at him, and they all got quiet at the same time. Then he turned around to leave, and they started talking. I thought that scene was quite comical. It was like the perfect amount of funny for the moment in that movie.
And I think I want to mention as well the scene with the charms being stuck to his back is it's mildly plot relevant, like not extremely so, but the fact that he when he was accosted by these bounty hunters or constables or whatever they were, they pushed him against a charm seller's store, and he had all these charms stuck to his back, which actually transferred some ink over, which. It shows up brief for a couple of seconds somewhere down the line, but he's basically walking around with these weird symbols plastered down his back.
I'd say that's important. Also, there's another scene that's pretty crucial that I glossed over there, where he goes to a vendor who's selling pictures, and he sees a painting of a woman, and he says, "Oh, this is very beautiful. I'd like to buy this." And the guy says, "Oh, you have excellent taste." And then but he has no money, so he says, "Excellent taste, but no means." And so he and again, it's funny because that is often in these Pusong Ling stories, that is often the case with these scholar guys. They're super educated and knowledgeable of the world, but they have no money, or they're desperate to either pass the imperial exams or be appointed to an important post. So anyways, he goes to the temple, and there he sees Swordsman Yin, played by Wu Ma, who's just like right away, this is an important character just by the look of him. He's having a duel with the guy he saw cut off the head of the bandit, Ha Ho. And so and he's sort of stuck in the middle. There's a fight scene, and then there's this great moment where they both point their swords like right at, like he's stuck in the middle, and their swords are meeting like right by his temples, and he appeals to them to love each other, and that goes on and talks about how love is the most powerful weapon, and it's more or less funny depending on the subtitles. I noticed that the DVD version that I have had much funnier subtitles for this scene than the Blu-ray version, and the subtitles on the other version were also pretty different as well. So, and I don't know. Did anybody have any thoughts on this scene?
I think the camera work during this that scene was actually was very well done. Actually, when you hit the swordsmen sort of pointing their swords at each other, you can sort of tell they're facing each other, and you get like a shot of his face as it sort of like reveals that it's actually caught between the two blades. That was a pretty funny moment, I thought.
Yeah, and then he starts preaching about the love and everything. It's like, dude, you're stuck between two swords here. I think I would duck before I start talking about loving each other. And he tries to get them to hug and shake hands, and they're just not having it. So I thought it was a little funny.
I just love how, like, in that scene as well, like, the two swordsmen are just talking to each other, ignoring the fact that they've basically got a hostage caught between them.
Well, and also it's a very good indication of the kind of movie we're going to get. We get sort of that clear sort of action scene. Like before, when the swordsman killed the bandits, it wasn't necessarily wire fu. Do you know what I mean? But now we're sort of in very fight choreography driven territory in this fight between the swordsmen, and so it's just kind of a good indication of what's to come. And so let's see. So he finds a room at the temple. And there are these dead scholars in there who have all been feasted upon by the tree demon, and they all. I mean, I don't know. What would you guys say about these effects of the scholarly remains? They're very sort of 80s practical effect undead, I would say.
What were they thinking?
They're definitely dated. You can tell this is not a modern type movie.
It did not age well, I'd say.
No.
Well, what's really funny is in part 2 they kind of double down with that effect. It's very interesting to see because I think there are a lot of really good effects in this movie, but I think those dead scholars are maybe the weakest effect, and it could have been they almost would have been better off just putting people in bodysuits that have gore on them, because then you wouldn't have had the weirdness of the movements, and the shoulders didn't quite look proportional, and there were just things that were kind of off about them. So anyway, soon after that duel, swordsman Ha Ho is near a river, and he sees the Joey Wong character bathing, and she seduces him, and he's killed by the tree demon. And we sort of get a very clear sense now of how these creatures are operating. The ghosts sort of do the seduction, and then the tree demon sends her. She basically puts her tongue down their throat, right? That's sort of the and she drains their she just dehydrates them. They just.
My question is why? Why does the seduction need to happen in order for?
I think okay. So here's what I think is going on. I think she's trying to get like their yang energy or something, and so having them seduced before that happens is, it's either that or it just makes them very vulnerable and easy to pick off. I don't know.
That's what I was thinking. That just the tree demon, when we see him, it is not really attractive. So in order to get that close, it needs to have some kind of way to get. Oh no! What happened?
I can hear you.
Okay. The tree demon needs to somehow get these men unaware so that she can drain their essence and life force and everything out of them. And I think the best way to do it is through a beautiful woman, because most men are totally lustful. So if you get them in a compromising position, then the tree demon's able to get them quickly without them even knowing. till the last moment.
Yeah, I'd say that's it. That's the right answer, I think.
And just to point out, like the one who's doing the seducing by the riverside is actually Xiao Qing, it's not Sui-tung.
I thought. Oh, are you sure about that? I could have sworn it was her.
I'm looking. It's definitely
okay.
Sui-tung there.
Okay.
So I don't know who it was at the beginning as well. So
but don't we see? Isn't that the scene where we see her crying though when she witnesses him being killed? Or
yes, but it's definitely Sui-tung's face there. But I think Sui-tung was also around the area because not long afterwards, the tree demon was sort of berating her for not bringing a sacrifice, basically. And I think it's because she was being soft about it.
Well, yeah, but that was also because she found the note that that she had written to Ning Choi-san, and she thought that he was hiding a man, and so that was the reason she got really angry. But I don't know. I guess I was wrong about that though. I guess it was the other ghost. But either way, he ends up dead. And then Swordsman Yin arrives and finds his former rival is one of the after people are dealt with by the tree demon, they become like those scholars in the temple. They become these bad 80s horror movie props, and Swordsman Yin, picks him up and it looks like he's about to bury him or something, and then the body attacks him. So we get to see some of his Taoist magic to fend off the spirits, and so he throws like a burning scroll at him, and the body explodes. And then it's soon after this that we have the first meeting of Ning Choi-san and Nisha-sen in the lake pavilion, and he's drawn to her because he hears her playing the I think it's the gusheng, and he goes to the pavilion, and those symbols that he had on his back that you were talking about, Kenny, they cause her some distress, so she sort of throws her veil in the water, and he goes after it, and then she pulls him out, and they have a little bit of a moment, but Swordsman Yin comes, and so Ning Choi-san chases after her with the gusheng, which she's left behind, and he eventually catches up, but then there's a cobra, and he's trying to save her from the cobra. It's clear she's not really scared of this cobra, but she kind of plays along, and she kind of helps along too. And then they end up running away from Swordsman Ying, who she says is this terrible murderer, and he offers to distract the swordsman, and they sort of go their separate ways, and Swordsman Ying ends up chasing her, but the tree demon matron intercedes, and she's able to get away. So I don't know. What do people think of the tree pavilion scene and the meeting by the chase scene through the woods?
I was really amused by the seduction attempt there. Like she was like, "Oh, I'm cold, warm me up," and it's like, "Oh, if you're cold, we should dry your clothes, so maybe put some more clothes on or whatever."
Yeah, he's so pure he's not having it, but she tries really, really hard to get him, and then I guess she realizes that he's a nice guy and shouldn't be eaten, drank, whatever, by the tree demon. So she kind of, I think, definitely starting to fall in love with him by the end of that scene.
Yeah, I would agree with you. This is where the romance seems to be beginning, and yeah, I like the seduction scene is pretty funny, and I think the scene with the snake is pretty funny too, because he's sort of trying to be heroic, but like it's just she's a ghost. Like, what's the cobra gonna do to her? And so but I think she's amused that he's trying to protect her. So she goes along with it. And I'm also, that scene with the snake, I always wonder this in these movies, because I really want to know like how close the actors are to a real, honest to goodness cobra, and if the cobra's been defanged, and if they're like how much of a risk are people taking in these action sequences involving venomous snakes. And is there a piece of glass separating? Like I'm I'm very concerned for the actors' safeties when I when I watch these scenes.
If I were the actor, it would have to be a rubber snake.
Yeah, you're not getting me close to a cobra. I'm not. I again, I'm sure it's camera tricks or something, but I just don't know. I have no idea how they did it. And yeah, so then so I think the next day, Swordsman Yin, approaches him and tries to sort of scare him off, and he has kind of a fight with him. And he also realizes that he can fake the entries in his book. So for this guy that we were saying is sort of very seems very righteous, he's pulling a pretty dirty trick on people. Though again, I'm sure that the bureaucracy is pretty unforgiving. So maybe he really doesn't have much of a choice. And because who knows what consequences he'd face if he doesn't bring his collections in. So he ends up faking the entries on the log. And he drops his inkstone into the chamber below where all those undead scholars are. And he crawls down into the chamber, and he accidentally, it's kind of, I don't know, this is a weird scene because it's very scary, but it's also very funny. He's being stalked by these undead scholars, and he accidentally opens up a shade, and the sunlight pours in and just melts them away. And then they just leave this awful residue on his inkstone. And he has no idea how much peril he's been in.
I just want to point out, like, so this is like, so we were first introduced to these zombie scholars, shriveled scholars, when he was trying to set up bed for the night, just as prior to him meeting Shasin, and they're basically like slowly ambling. They start in the attic, I guess, is what we're trying to slowly crawl down towards him, and there's like a little bit of slapstick of them all falling through the roof and crashing down into the basement, and it's just like, what's happening? And he starts covering up the hole in the floor, and he is completely unaware that these zombie scholars exist. Like, and I think it's sort of lots of like slapstick humor there, in that we as the viewer can see, like, oh, he's in mortal peril. These zombies are about to, they can smell his blood, because he gets like a splinter in his finger and is like closing the window or whatever, and that's sort of what wakes the zombies up. And it's like, oh, he's in trouble now, but he's never really in trouble because the zombies always seem to conveniently fall into the wrong places or get blocked off in weird and interesting ways. And the fact that he accidentally kills all of them by moving a piece of wood out of the way, like sunlight through, is also a bit interesting.
But I don't know. I find that that the humor adds to the horror for me in these scenes. And normally I'm the opposite. Do you know what I mean? Like, normally if it's a horror movie, it's sort of the constant maintaining of that horror atmosphere is kind of vital to making you scared. But in a movie like this, the humor almost makes you drop your guard, and you're even, it's that weird juxtaposition of like slapstick comedy and like really, really dangerous undead monster behind him that makes the movie scary. I think before the podcast you were comparing it a little bit to Return of the Dead, and I think that's a very good comparison because it's that sweet spot where comedy and horror actually align perfectly, even though you wouldn't think that you can have them both residing in the same place. I'm sorry, Dion, did you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to say that, the slapstick comedy is great, and I enjoyed the scene where Swordsman Yen is trying to get him to leave, and he's kind of stuck in between the floorboards, and he keeps getting lower and lower and lower, and then one of the undead kind of gets a hold of his bottom half, and then when he comes up, the hand comes down and pulls off his bottom half, and he's like, what happened to my bottom portion? And then he accuses Yin of taking it, and Yin has nothing to do with it, and he's still kind of clueless. He doesn't even go to look for his bottom half anywhere.
Yeah, where's my bottom half? It's attached to the upper half.
So some of the jokes are translated well, but some of them like are sort of missing in translation. There's a lot of like wordplay humor here going on, especially like if we've got to talk back to the scene where he's caught between the two swords and is like spouting off like poetry and stuff. There's a lot of like puns and wordplay going on from the people dismissing him as well. So,
well, in one of the versions I watched, the subtitles, he kind of said to the two swordsmen, like, he almost said you should make love to each other, the way that the subtitle phrased it, and I was wondering if that was sort of part of the original meaning, or if it was just a bad translation. Because it made me laugh when I saw that, but I was like, I don't know if that was intentional or not. That might have just been an accidental mistranslation. But yeah, so then he goes back to town, and the big thing that happens here is he gets some money, and he also we see the Joey Wong character back in the city with the scroll, sort of, and she's sort of dreamily moving through the city holding the scroll in a really dramatic way, and there are these horn players by her, and the scene is striking, but it's very brief, and they take that scene in part 2 and really elaborate on it, and it becomes an important plot point. But I think that, you know, that it's still like a cool looking scene in this movie. And what she basically...
So quick question there, actually. So did that scene actually happen? Because I was really confused, because I thought it was during the day, and she would melt if she was exposed to sunlight.
That was my understanding too, but it was also kind of overcast, so I thought maybe that was... But we know that she ended up taking the scroll, right? Like, the scroll was gone. So I think she was really there. Whether they were... Again, there's a surreal quality to this movie, and I don't know... because there is that rule, sunlight clearly burns her till she evaporates, and that was daytime. So I don't know if there was this part that I missed where maybe there was some exception, or if it was because it was overcast, or, you know, she had an umbrella so it blocked the sun. I don't know.
That's what I was thinking, because she's kind of like marching in some kind of parade, it seemed like. So there might have been people with umbrellas nearby to be able to shade her enough that she was able to swoop in and get the scroll and swoop out really quickly. I don't know. Was there some kind of holiday maybe the town was celebrating, and that's why there was that
could be like a funeral to me, actually.
The funeral.
So
like a funeral.
Maybe
parade.
The funeral gave her some kind of protection from the I don't know. I really wish I had a director's commentary version of this movie. The versions I got on both the Blu-ray and the DVD, the only one of them has a special feature, and it's a special feature of James Wong doing an interview, the guy who did the music, but there's no translation of the interview, so I have no idea what he's saying in the special feature. But that's an aside. And anyways, we get more of these aggressive soldiers, you know, trying to gather up people that are shouting. And he also goes to buy the painting after he gets his money, and the guy tells him it's gone. And you know, he doesn't know where it went. So obviously she didn't go in and buy it. She pilfered it somehow. But he's able to buy a bunch of lanterns, so he's sort of confident. He's walking home. He's not afraid of the wolves this time. I don't know what he thinks he's going to do to the wolves with his 3 lanterns if he encounters them, but he doesn't seem afraid at all, and maybe he's just being buoyed by love. But Ni Shui-sun is watching him from a tree, and she's killed the wolves, and it's kind of an interesting gesture of love. Like you see him walking through the woods, and then the camera pans up, and you see the wolves hanging in a tree, and clearly she was responsible for it. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting scene.
And he was acting so brave and talking out loud to himself. And she hears him, and then she starts howling like the wolf, and then he kind of gets a little scared, but not really.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Funny.
Yeah, she howls, and he gets nervous.
Yeah, but that was pretty cute. And I think the reason why he felt safer with more lanterns was because I guess it's a traditional belief that beasts are scared of flames and light. And the first time round, he was chased relentlessly because his lantern had gone out. So with 3 lanterns, he's got 3 times the chances of keeping at least one on, right? his logic was sound, but the actual execution was not really sure that would help you against the whole pack of wolves, to be honest.
And then we have after that we have a big scene. This is the big sort of, I think this is the most famous scene in the movie, where he goes back to meet her at the pavilion, and she kind of drags him to the manor, and while he's there, the matron comes in, and he's sort of trapped in this manor, and he has to hide in a tub. And the matron, like you said, she found that note that Ning Choi-san, and she starts whipping Nishoy-chan, and there's another ghost there that's kind of her rival and is really enjoying this whole process. And we just kind of learn more about how the ghosts live, what the arrangement is with the matron. I think this is the first time we really see the matron like doing anything and talking in any really significant way. And we also learn that the matron has arranged for her to be married with, and it varies from subtitle version to subtitle version, but I'm just going to go with Dark Lord. She's been arranged to marry this Dark Lord, and so there's a but the sort of central part of the scene is Ning Choi-san having to hide in this tub and her having to protect him from being seen by the matron or the other ghosts. But it's a very detail rich scene. So I mean, I don't know if you guys want to say anything else about it or if you had any thoughts.
I actually quite like the tree demon character. I thought it. I don't know. It's somehow like it's just the way the actor portrayed it was just really fitting. And I like the sort of dual voice thing. It's just one of those things which made him seem more sinister than they actually were.
I would agree. The I forget the actor's name, but he did a really marvelous job, and they kind of do the yin yang thing where they have a female voice and then a male voice kind of alternating, and it's a really weird effect, and it definitely adds to the quality of the character. And also I should say that in the remake they actually have Kara Hui play the tree demon, so which is and it's done a whole other way, but it's but I think that this version of the tree demon is so effective that you really had to bring in someone like Kara Hui in order to match it for the remake. But
I was confused at first by the tree demon because it's obviously a man with lipstick, but then you have these two different voices coming out. So I was like, wait, is it supposed to be a man? It's supposed to be a woman. I'm confused. But then it didn't really matter. It was a demon anyway, so...
I think what they're doing is, I think it's definitely supposed to be a female, I think, because she calls it a matron, and she says that she uses she a lot to talk about it, unless the subtitles are wrong. But
yeah, like matron's probably not correct. Like, no, it's one of those strange terms that not quite gender neutral, but like both genders ish.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an unusual.
So.
Pronoun.
Well, what was your impression from the Cantonese? Was your impression that it was that the tree demon was a female or a male or neither? What was the?
I think neither. I mean,
it is a tree after all.
It is. Yeah, it is a tree. I think it doesn't necessarily. I mean, the actor was obviously clearly male, yeah. But other than that, I don't think the character itself needed to have a gender of any sort, just because it's a tree that became a demon after many years of whatever demons. What are the trees have to do to become demons?
And it's not a seductive tree. It's like like you were saying. This is not. It's not a sexy demon, so it's obviously it doesn't. It's just kind of. I think what they're trying to do too is I think they're trying to get that sort of it is residing between the boundaries of the human realm and the spirit realm, and so that's sort of like just the way that they're representing it in this. There was a lot of that in the 90s with characters like you said in The Bride with White Hair is very very similar kind of thing. I think that's sort of what was going on here. So then
I guess about that scene as well. Like I thought it was quite interesting, sort of the tension between Siu-Ching and Siu-Sin. The way she was trying to keep her away from the tub at all the times, and she was clearly suspecting that there was something off about the tub because Siu-Sin was a bit too protective of it, and just the way the little battle, I'd say, between the two of them there with her like splashing water on. Whoops, my hand slipped.
No, that was a funny scene, and also the other ghost. It was what was it? Little Cheng, was that?
Yeah.
What her name was? She I like the personality that they had for her. She was like she was she didn't get a whole lot of screen time, but in the little amount that you had, you basically got what was going on between her and Joey Wong's character and how their rivalry had come about. So I thought that was, and again, one of the things I like about these movies is the way ghosts live in these stories is not that different from how humans live. Do you know what I mean? It's not. They're not. You know. She had. There's a house with ghosts in it. They're jealous over who gets the biggest room. You know. They're one of them is being arranged to marry somebody. You know. There's an ecosystem just like you would find in a human household, and it's you don't see that quite as much in like American horror movies, but it actually makes the ghosts a little bit more frightening at times because they are more real. They're not these vague things, and so I don't know. I think it works well. But the next sequence is well, let me find my place here. So then we have the scene at the ghost house where she is where they talk about the painting, and she tells him that she was murdered and her father was murdered, and then she sort of tries to push him away. I think she accuses him of coming after her money or something like that, and they have a lover's quarrel, and she says like, I'm arranged to be married with this guy, like what are you gonna do? And so he leaves and goes is gonna just head off, but he goes back to town, and again we get more of those shouting guards, but he sees a poster of a guy named Scarface Lou who looks exactly like Swordsman Yin, and so he runs back to warn her because he doesn't want her to get killed by this terrible outlaw that he realizes might be hanging out at the temple. And this is also where we get the Taoist rap scene.
That was amazing.
Yeah. So this is if you do nothing else after listening to this podcast, look up Wu Ma rap Chinese ghost story. I don't know what the search term should be, but I'm sure you will find a link to this scene. It's the most unusual thing that actually works in a movie. Like if you showed it to me in isolation, I'd be like, what? I wouldn't have any idea how this could fit into a movie like this. And it comes out of nowhere, but it just totally works, and it fits exactly with his character. And I think a lot of it is because it's Wu Ma. I think he just does a really great job playing this guy, and you just believe that this is Swordsman Yin, and he can do anything, and that includes sing a rap about his...
a rap in ancient China about the way.
Well, I gotta say, like, it's weird because this movie is set in ancient China, and it's a little unclear to me exactly which period it is, but it's not the modern era, and I feel like they throw in all these little anachronisms here and there, but it does nothing to take away from the sense that this is set in an earlier period of time. They can shove a rap sequence in your face, and you still buy that he's rapping in ancient China somehow. I don't know how to do it. But and it's it's like a really entertaining song. Like it works. And I don't know, like what was your guys' impression of it?
That scene was, I thought, hysterical. I had to watch that scene twice because not only is he rapping, but he's moving around, he's practicing like swordsmanship, but it kind of almost is like breakdancing, but not on the floor. That's the kind of...
Yeah.
That's what the impression that I got. And it's just like, man, this Taoist priest is just off the chain. I love Wu Ma. I think he's a great actor. And it's like, I was wondering if he was drunk in that scene. Not, his character was drunk and not the actual person. Because it was just like so funny. It's like, that's the kind of stuff that comes out of people when they are drunk. Yeah. So it's just, I don't know. It was a comical scene. I loved it.
I've always interpreted it as him being drunk, but I don't know if that's supposed to be the case. He looks drunk during the scene, but he also could just be filled with, we see that he's like a complicated man, so he could be filled with just this passion in him that he needs to express in the form of rap. I don't know.
Like that scene in the Shaolin Soccer when when he starts singing and then everybody else starts joining in with their passionate dancing.
It's a very striking scene. I don't know.
So yeah, and I think probably the translation to the lyrics is all. So I mentioned this before the podcast as well. Was probably missing a bit of nuance, just because the way or Tao is sort of synonymous with Taoism and seeking a path to truth and that sort of thing, and he's basically questioning a lot of things in that song, which kind of highlights that is not a simple character. Like there is some depth to him, and I think he definitely takes a swig out of a wine bottle or two during that scene as well. So it's sort of you get the I got the feeling that he was sort of lamenting, between the relationships between people and trying to find how he can make his way in life and not be caught up in the flow of other people. So.
Well, it's very interesting. I guess we should maybe talk a little bit about his character, because I mean this stuff does come up later in the movie too. But he's sort of withdrawn from the world, and we get sort of different explanations for why. But it seems like he's basically tired of the ways of humans, and so he retires into the monastery, where he ends up clashing with these ghosts, and so he's kind of stuck between both worlds in a way. And over the course of the movie, he seems to be slowly imitating the ghosts more and more, to the point at one point he's actually covered in white, and he's indistinguishable from a ghost in a way. And that's the moment where he has the big crisis, and he doesn't really, he sort of questions, he seems to be questioning everything. So he's a very complicated character, and I think that he eventually does sort of find his purpose in the movie, I think, but he's one of the better parts of the film, really.
Yeah, I think at some point he actually says himself that he prefers the company of ghosts, just because they're not as the worst humans are worse than the best ghosts or whatever, something along those lines, basically, which implies to me that he's sick and fed up of like conniving and scheming humans, and that ghosts somehow make better companions that way. They seem to be more honest about what they want up front.
Well, and the whole "we're not so different, you and I" villain thing is usually way overdone and kind of doesn't work. But here, when the matron, sort of says that to him, it actually kind of fits, and I think it's effective. And there's a whole scene where she's, like, well, I'm just killing the bad guys too, and he says, no, you're not. And then I think at one point she sticks his tongue out at him, so he sticks his tongue out at her, and she screams, and so then he screams, and so he's just constantly kind of behaving like the ghost. And it's I don't know, it's a very intriguing part of the movie to me. But I guess we should go on, because Ning Choi-sun comes back, and he tries to warn her about Scarface Lou, and this is when they make love, and they basically for sure become lovers. And it's also where things really kind of start to the action kind of really starts to kick up, and so after they make love, she reveals to him that she's a ghost. I don't think he quite believes her yet, but she reveals it. And
I think the more important thing is that he actually takes off her anklet, which seems to be some sort of magic item that protects her from being detected by Swordsman Yin.
Yeah, that's what draws the attention of Swordsman Yin.
But I thought the bracelet also draws the attention when she shakes it. That's when the tree demon comes out.
So here's what I think happens. I think when she shakes that bracelet, I think that's what brings the tree demon to the scene where she needs to kill somebody. But I think Swordsman Yin is onto them, and so he is constantly going after the ghost when he hears that sound. I think that's why, because like his bells were resonating when that bangle was shaking. But either way, what ends up happening is Swordsman Yin comes after them, and they sort of flee. He mistakes little Ching for Ni Xiaocheng, and he and she gets beheaded by Yin, and so he thinks that He thinks that once he realizes that it's not her, that it's her sister ghost. He still thinks that she's a person. He thinks that Swordsman Yin is indeed this Scarface Liu, and so he goes to the magistrate to tell him that a woman's been beheaded by this madman, and so then we get this whole courtroom scene where the official shows up, and they clearly just have a scam where they're just using justice to get rich, and I mean, and it's really played for laughs. Like the guy playing the magistrate is basically acting like a baby, and he's got like his number two who's arranging everything for him, and so Swordsman Yin sort of crashes the proceedings, and they bring the real Scarface Liu out, and we realize that they're two different people, and then by the end when they mention that they're staying at Lanro Temple, all the people in the courtroom flee, and he goes back to the temple with Swordsman Yin. But I don't know, what do you guys think of those two scenes and of the the antics at the courtroom?
I just want to point out as well, like the magistrate was sort of speaking in a weird accent. I'd say it's like a sort of what Hong Kong people would think that mainlanders trying to speak Cantonese would sound like. I don't know if they're trying to make a mockery of. I wouldn't go as far as say there's like a political statement going on here about how all the mainlanders are corrupt and and want bribes and stuff. But it was just one of those things which stood out to me because it was obvious like he was putting on this really dodgy, foreign-ish Chinese accent.
I mean, I think that's a reasonable conclusion, especially leading up to the transition of power that sort of looms over a lot of these 80s to 90s films. It's it's probably fair, and I mean, and Shui Hark produced the film, and he's kind of a lot of his movies do get that kind of interpretation. So I think oh yeah, I'm sorry, but go on. I think I might have interrupted you.
Oh, no, go on.
Lady Xiao Feng, did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought the whole courtroom scene was hysterical. It was, like Kenny had said, you could tell they were mocking the courts, and you finally put it together why these lunatic constables are running around trying to arrest everybody. It's their way of making money. That's how they're getting paid. So it's just like a whole lot of things come together in that one little scene. But the stature of the magistrate is kind of puny and weak, and then you have his strong right-hand man next to him telling him everything that he needs to say and do. It's like complete mockery of the whole justice system.
And also sprinkled in there, we get a sense of how famous Swordsman Yin is, because the magistrate's assistant immediately recognizes who he is, and he reprimands the men for not knowing how famous this guy is. And he also kind of gives Swordsman Yin's backstory for us so that we understand that he's fed up with the corruption of the world and has withdrawn. And he also kind of tries to like he's worried that Swordsman Yin is there because they've been doing all this dodgy justice, and he basically says, Swordsman Yin, I had nothing to do with what's going on here, and he's clearly
it's all his fault.
Yeah, he's like the guy that's behind it. So it's. Yeah, I think that guy. It's a very funny scene, and so anyways, they go back to the temple, and Swordsman Yin convinces him to help lure out the ghost, and he gives him the sutra. He teaches him the mantra, the
very infamous phrase actually.
Yeah.
Boy, follow me.
Yeah. which you will hear repeatedly through the film, and it adds a lot to the scenes where he's enacting his magical powers.
And I have to say that's like a very famous phrase. Probably not because of this movie, just because it's a general thing from some of the more famous sutras that people generally not necessarily know, but are aware of. Yeah, boy bother me is like a sound that's used in sutras quite often for whatever reason. No idea what it means, like, but I'm sure it's something profound. But it's just one of those things. Which is,
It's kind of up there with Amitofa
Yeah.
when the Buddhist monks like have to kill somebody and they so it's yeah I but but I think here it's used largely for comedic effect with him, where he's sort of bole me, and he sends his flames at the evil ghosts, but he convinces him to try to lure the ghost out, and for a while he's on board with this plan, but when and I'll try to do the Cantonese version of the name, when Ni Sui-sin arrives, she persuades him that she's not bad, and it's pretty obvious that she doesn't mean him harm. And she has a whole soliloquy she does where she basically says that some men are worse than ghosts, and some ghosts can't vent their grievances, so they have to stay. And he ends up promising to bury her remains in her hometown, and she says he has 2 days to do that. And this is really in keeping with the original story, by the way. That's the main sort of thing he does in the story, is he takes her bones from the poplar tree and brings them to a proper burial. So but before the night is over, the matron attacks, and there's a big battle between swordsman Yin and the matron, and he ends up breaking her power for 100 years, which becomes important in one of the sequels. And it's after this battle where he's covered in white goo that he has this identity crisis that we've been talking about, and he sort of laments that he's he doesn't like know where he belongs, and Ning Choi-san is like, okay, this is no time for a crisis like this. The important thing is we need to get her bones and bring them back to a proper burial. Will you help me? And he agrees, and they set about to do that. And that's sort of the final climax of the film, is them going back with the bones, which we'll get into. But what did you guys think of the battle with the matron and the scene where he agreed to take the remains?
I give that tongue a big thumbs up. It thoroughly disgusted me, like it was supposed to.
The tongue?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of gross. It was so long and thick and came from everywhere. It was gross.
And so gunky and stuff as well. And
yeah.
It's a very visceral effect. It makes you... It's like sometimes horror movies will make you like feel fear. Sometimes they make you feel physical sensations, and this was one of those ones that made you feel like really squeamish and gross just looking at it.
And yeah, the scenes where where the tip of the tongue was like approaching someone's mouth, and we'd had a scene before with swordsman Sa, where it entered through the mouth and it sucked them dry from the inside. So, I got a bit worried. Oh no! Don't keep your mouth shut. Don't talk while you're doing like it. If it was like a proper horror movie, one of those careless moments would be when the tree demon could have taken advantage and just like dive straight in and suck them dry. And I also like the sort of the taunting scene between swordsman Yin and the tree demon as well, where they're like it was just mocking them. They're like sticking their tongue out at each other.
Well, and it's funny, he sticks his tongue out, then she sticks her tongue out, and it's like, a million times longer than his, and he has to leap into a tree. Yeah,
and our main character says her tongue was much bigger than yours. Like, duh.
And so yeah, I like that scene. I really like the scene after, when he's covered in white and he's just having this moment where the world is so bewildering, and I don't know. And again, I don't know what it says in the original, but and again, this is a scene that I found played very differently depending on which subtitles I was observing, and I really think the DVD had the best subtitles of the lot of the ones that I watched this week. And so I don't know if you had any insights on that from watching it in the Cantonese, Kenny, but that exchange between him and Ning Choi-san I thought was interesting.
I think I didn't pay much attention to the subtitles in that particular scene.
Well, what did you think of that? Well, like, what were your thoughts on what they said? I guess.
It was quite profound. Like it was one of those things where you have to. Well, you see the struggle on Swordsman Yin. Like he is obviously like a person who is very righteous and passionate, and he wants to help, but at the same time, like he's also so alienated from the rest of people who, all these corrupt officials that which we've seen an example of, and all the people trying to make money, all the bounty hunters we've been seeing as a recurring thing, and it's kind of sort of like an interesting thing there just to see his struggle to reconcile, like the fact that humans can be shit, it doesn't change the fact that you can be a good person among all of that. You can be a pearl in the rough there. It doesn't really matter. You can, helping someone become, reincarnate is a good deed, and that just because there are evil humans out there doesn't mean you shouldn't help whoever you can.
No, it was
kind of just.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
It was a very.
Well.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was a very melodramatic scene. It was very melodramatic, I thought, and I think that's one of the interesting things about this movie and movies like it, and just the sort of the cliche, or not the cliche, the stereotype of the sort of Chinese swordsman movies is that they're like they don't have emotion. Do you know what I mean? That's sort of like one of like these. But when you watch a lot of the films, you realize no, there's like actually a lot of these guys are overflowing with emotion. And Swordsman Yin seems to be one of these types of characters. Is that he's just like I said, a very passionate figure in the film, and I think I don't know, maybe it's because of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and that perception of things is that they're more stoic, but again, the thing that I find makes a lot of these films so great is the melodrama, the ability to kind of go high emotion and low emotion and kind of go all over the map with things. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. But yeah. So then we get to the end scene, which is the finale, and they have to flee through the forest and shoot some arrows at trees, but they get there pretty safely. And there's this innkeeper who's got a really low register, strange voice, and it's played mostly for laughs. But then you realize that it might be a lot more sinister as the scene progresses, and. When they go to get her bones from the urn, I think they call it a golden pagoda. They realize that there's like a ton of these under the trees. They take all of them and they put them all out, and a bunch of female ghosts come, but none of them are the Nisui Sin character. And so they tell them to be good, and they go. And then there's one urn left, and he's like, "Oh, please let it be her." And you hear the voice of a man say, "Did you call me?" And it's the gruff innkeeper calling from the window. And he's one of these guys. He looks like he's like maybe 22, but he's got the expression of like a 50-year-old man. That's how I describe the character. He just looks, like he's wise beyond his years, and he's just lived a life, but he's still very young. And so, but then, after that sort of humorous moment has passed, we see that Ni Xiaosun is behind him, and they have a night together where they're able to sort of take her painting and add some poetry to it. And as they're doing that, Swordsman Yin is roaming around the inn, and there's this really great sequence where he slowly realizes that the inn is evil. And he does some magic on his eyes, and he can see the evil fog. And he opens up one of the pans in the kitchen, and he sees that there are boiling human heads inside. And then he pulls back some curtains, and there's just this enormous pile of skulls and magical scrolls flying all over the place. And he realizes that they're trying to arrange a ghost wedding with the ghost, and that the wedding with the Dark Lord is in fact still on. And so he runs to them and tells them they need to flee, and she gets sucked into hell, and they have to go in after her, charge into hell, and take on this Dark Lord. And there's this huge battle in hell that's like 10 minutes long, and it finally ends when they're about to be consumed by the Dark Lord, and the scrolls fall off of Ning Choi-san, and explode on him, and they're able to escape. And then they're able to say goodbye before the dawn, and she goes back into her urn and he buries her. So that's the end. I really had to kind of gloss over it for time, but what did you guys think of the finale?
They should have known when they walked into the inn in the middle of nowhere and it's decorated all in red that something was up. I'm sorry, but I thought they were totally clueless at that point. I knew something was up there.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of the strange things. Like it's all decorated like for a wedding, and the fact that there's no other guests there, and there's like one sleepy-looking innkeeper. Should have tipped them off. I mean, I would have thought that Swords and Yin would have been savvy enough to realize something. But I mean, he did
eventually
realize it.
About
Yeah,
an hour too late was the problem.
I think in game terms, he failed his perception check the first time round, and the DM wouldn't let him try again until a few turns later.
What I loved about it was how quickly it allowed them to turn into the climax. Like and the whole movie does have a surreal vibe to it. So it was one of these very surreal moments in the film where, like you said, they should have realized it, and the viewer kind of knows something's not right here. Like even if you don't notice the wedding decorations, the innkeeper's just a weird guy. Like there's something up with that innkeeper. And again, it's another moment though where I think the humor is used effectively because it disguises what's actually happening. You think, oh, he's weird because they're trying to make a joke. Not he's weird because he's like secretly working for the Dark Lord and and they're about to draw her into hell. And so again, I just think that the humor gave them enough camouflage to kind of slip it in so you might not have noticed it. And then the climax scene I thought was a really, I don't know, it gets very atmospheric because you have this dense fog and you have these armies protecting the Dark Lord and just this massive battle. And I don't know, and then the scene where the Dark Lord opens up his robe and there's just all these heads and they fly out and bite everybody. There were just tons of stuff in there that I loved.
Were the heads women?
I don't know. I saw some female heads. I don't know if they were all women. Maybe
I was
those
thinking
were
maybe
brides.
they were. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that they were all the souls and the heads of his former brides.
That might be it, because he did say, "Give me your golden pagoda." He wanted, so maybe that was part of it. I don't know. That would be a good explanation. I definitely think that if that's the case, that added to the cool factor of the heads. But I don't know, Kenny, what do you think?
No, I really enjoyed that scene. I thought it might be like a sort of like a tragic end, because you have the Swords and Yin guy sort of fighting one against many, and it feels like one of those end of a heroic end in the Wuxia movie style where he sacrifices himself so that Ling Choi-san and Lee Su-sun can have a happy ending, or she can reincarnate or whatever, and he would die in the process. But I'm kind of glad that they all got away in the end, and I thought that the sort of the fine, I was expecting the suture to happen at some point, because they made it a very obvious point of him keeping it on his body rather than in his basket. So I knew that was going to come into play, but it was still pretty sort of impressive to see it happen, and how it happened. Was fairly. I thought that was a good way for the big bad boss to be killed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And,
almost kind of like by accident, because you weren't expecting the book to fall out, and it just happens to fall out and kills him. So it was like the debt collector was kind of inept again, but inept in a good way, that he was able to destroy the demon.
And we also got to see Ni Sui-sin get a solid hit in at the Dark Lord. I think she ended up throwing the sword into him or something. There was a moment where
she was flying with the sword, and and I think because it was like a holy sword or whatever, she was basically burning her hands to hold on to it to stab the Dark Lord.
And I should say, in the book we get I'd say even a happier ending than in the movie, because he ends up marrying Ni Sui-sun and having children, or having a child with her. It's a little more complicated than that, because he's already got a wife in the book, but it's but they have a happy ending together. And
And I mean, if we're sort of running out of plot points to talk about, I'll let you finish first before we talk about ghosts. Can we continue?
oh no, that was it. I was just commenting that it ended a little differently in the story. But
Yeah, I mean, 'cause I was just gonna say, like, ghosts in Chinese fiction work so much differently than ghosts in pretty much any other type of fiction, to be honest. Like, they seem to have a body, they can sleep with people, they can bear children, apparently, and it's just all those things where it's like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. What are they in the end? Are they the souls of the new departed, or how can they have so much like tangible physical effect on things?
well, it's interesting that like so much of the spiritual world in these movies and these stories reflects the real world. Like, there's a bureaucracy in heaven and hell, just like there's a bureaucracy here. They often have similar priorities, and sometimes they even align with each other. Like some of the stories, like if a bureaucrat in hell, signs something off, it applies here. Do you know what I mean? Like there's like all kinds of like that's, I think, in the story, the reason she's allowed to have a child is because somebody in the heavenly bureaucracy or the bureaucracy of hell, one of them made some kind of like basically gave her like an okay to do it because of the circumstances. I can't remember the exact detail, but it was something like that. And I don't know. I think it's yeah, they do definitely seem to play by very different rules than like a ghost story from like England or America. But I don't know. I think it's one of the things that it makes for more possibilities because you can have these dramatic love stories, and like in a movie, in like an American horror movie, that might kind of be weird. Do you know what I mean? Like being in love with a ghost might be like really kind of creepy and strange. But in this, it doesn't feel that odd. It just feels like they're in kind of bad circumstances and they're star-crossed lovers, but it's not getting into, it doesn't get into super strange territory.
Yeah, it's like trying to imagine the girl from The Ring having a relationship with another character. It would just be pretty.
It would be very weird.
Pretty damn odd. Yeah.
But I mean, in like all of the strange tales, like I mean, not most of the stories, but a good number of the stories are about scholars having romantic or sexual relationships with ghosts or fox spirits. I think some people even just call them like the ghost and fox spirit stories because there's so many of them in it. So I think that's why that element is so strong in the movie. Yeah, I don't know. I think it works though.
I think I've sort of like I've actually watched like an alternate telling of this story, well, loosely based on it, where basically the scholar finds her reincarnation like 18 years later and then marries her for that sort of happy ending instead of whatever. We don't really know what happens here.
In the sequel, I think the sequel kind of gets into that. I'm trying to remember if it's actually her reincarnation or not, but I think it might be. But he basically meets another person played by Joey Wong, and he falls in love with her, and they're able to get married. But then in part 3, Joey Wong ends up back with the tree matron. So, because of the 100-year thing. So, it's very sad actually to see her back in the place where she started. But yeah, so I don't know. Any other thoughts on the film? And I thought one thing that was really important about it was the music. I know we didn't talk about it, but the music really, I think, is the thing that gives it its atmosphere. That and like the fog machine. But between the fog and the fog machine, there's like palpable fog throughout the movie, and it's
half the movie.
That's true.
And I feel like it and I mean a lot of 80s and 90s, Hong Kong horror and martial arts movies have this sort of foggy, odd angle effect, but here I just feel that the fog and the music work so well together. Between like the synth music that they were playing and there's a song, I think it's called Dawn Do Not Come. I
like that song.
Yeah, and it's got Sally Ye does the vocals, and they kind of give you snippets of it until the very end when the dawn actually comes, and it's just very, I don't know, very appropriate. It fits. It sort of helps give the mood, and even the song at the beginning, the opening theme song to the movie, which I think the vocals to that are done by James Wong. I'm not 100% sure. Uh, that's it's a little bit of a more playful sounding song, but but as you hear it more and more, it becomes like an earworm. And and I don't know. I just think the music in this is very is one of the strengths of the film. Um, and I guess we should also say that there was a lot of action choreography in this, and Chi Sui-tung did some, Lao Chi Ho, but also Philip Kwok was involved. And so it's always nice to see him. Um, but yeah, no. Any additional thoughts in the movie?
No, I think it's a nice sort of change of pace for people who, want something a bit different from a traditional romance story or like a kung fu or martial arts movie. I mean, it's there's plenty of action and then plenty of mysticism as well involved here, and it's sort of like a nice little introduction into the world of Chinese mythology as well. Like it doesn't, cover a lot, but it gives you enough of a view that if you've got interest in that sort of thing, then it might inspire you to look into it a little bit more. So I definitely say you should check it out if you're interested in that sort of thing.
And I think the more oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say I agree with Kenny. It's a great mix of martial arts, a love story, a little bit of horror, and a bit of comedy. It worked all very well in this movie, and I think everybody should give it a chance.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is a really good movie to watch. I would strongly encourage people who haven't seen it to check it out. And I like Kenny said, I think it's a good window into the mythology, and I think the more mythology you know, the more entertaining these kind of movies become. And like Lady Chow Feng was saying, I think that all the different elements that are at play really complement each other in an extraordinary way here. And it has action, it has comedy, it has horror, yet it still remains a very atmospheric movie somehow. It remains a very horrifying movie at times. None of that takes away from the comedy, but the comedy and the action don't take away from the horror. And I think again, it's because you're dropping your guard for these things, and there's a flow to them. There's there seems to be a natural rhythm to when they're applied, and it all works extraordinarily well. So I would say, go out, check it out. It's a little harder to get than some of the movies we do. It's not available on Prime, I think. And for this discussion, I watched the DVD version and I watched the Fortune Star Blu-ray. I have to say, I think the DVD version, I can't remember the name on the like what production company it was, but it's got like the beautiful red image of all the characters on it. That DVD had much more enjoyable and entertaining subtitles, and the image quality wasn't that different on my screen from the Blu-ray. So I would honestly steer people towards the DVD. The sequels, I would say you probably want to get the Blu-rays for those. But for the first one, I think the DVD with the red cover is stronger. And yeah, and also the director is a really good director. You should definitely check out Ching Siu-tung's films. He's done the Swordsman movies are outstanding. The Terracotta Warrior is another outstanding film that he did. I think he did The Witch from Nepal, and I think Duel to the Death was the other one. A number of other films, but those ones really, to me, sort of as standout movies. And Sorcerer and the White Snake is a more recent one. Also, you really should check out Strange Tales. I think that these are they're amazing stories, and there are a number of different versions you can get. I have quite a few different volumes of them because I like them so much. But if you've never read them, I would recommend getting the Penguin edition. Some of the translation things are a little odd. Like if you try to find this story in the Penguin version, you might have trouble because I think it's just called Magic Bag, Magic Sword, and in the Chinese classic library version, it's called Ni Chao Chun, I believe, and so it's just the name of the ghost character. But definitely, this is a great opportunity if you've seen the movie to watch to go and check out the Strange Tale stories. They're really a big part of this style of film. Like a lot of movies are influenced by it. So And I've done a lot of podcasts on Strange Tales, and I'll probably do some more in the coming weeks when I talk about the Strange Tales game. But definitely, this benefits from reading the story, and the story is available. You can get the Library of Chinese Classics multi-volume version. If you just get volume 1, you'll get the story, or you can get like the Penguin edition. And there's a number of other good editions out there too. There's the Giles version. So we'll be back on next week. We'll talk about 14 Amazons. We're going to have a month of female hero movies. So we're going to kick it off with 14 Amazons. And it's a really good movie. It's a really solid film. And that one is available on Amazon. So you can watch it on Amazon. Definitely check it out. Come listen to the discussion. And until then, we'll talk to you later.
God,